Spurs host the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. Can they snap their losing streak? And what do we think about the new City Edition jerseys?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. TGIF, everybody. Hope you're having a great end of the work week. What are we talking about today? Well, your Spurs are going to be hitting the court tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. They got a tall task ahead of them. We're going to look at the game, preview it, keys to victory. What do we got to look out for, and much, much more. And then we're going to get into our reaction about the new Spurs City Edition jerseys. Not really a big surprise since everybody kind of knew about this since the end of last season, but nevertheless, it's official now. So we're going to give our take on that. Who was helping me today? He is Joe Garcia, back here on Locked On Spurs after a little while away from the mic. Let's go and welcome in. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you. This episode is always available on wherever you get podcasts, whether it be YouTube, iTunes, pick a platform. We're there, and we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. And this episode, is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for your sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Joe, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. Appreciate you coming on, but my God, of course, you make a return back here while the Spurs are losing. That's a bummer.
Well, aren't they continuing to lose, Jeff? They're on a losing streak right now after that miraculous 3-game or 4-game winning streak they had, and then after that, wheels came off, so it was to be expected, though. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it is what it is. I mean, get ready for a long season, Jeff.
Very shades of last season. Remember the same pattern happened last year? Go to the Lakers gym. They beat them in their gym. Went to the Clippers. They beat the Clippers. Went to Milwaukee, beat the Bucks. Everybody was riding high. Then reality set in. It's very eerily similar to last year, Joe.
It is, but I mean, that's just goes to show you that this is a young team and they're inexperienced. And unfortunately, they're going to need heartbreaking losses like they just had, to the Memphis Grizzlies. To get better, So, I mean, it just expect, more learning to go on as the season wanes on. It's an inexperienced team. They're going to learn. They're probably going to get a little bit better. They're going to still remain competitive, but it's going to translate into them still losing. But that's okay because we already know what we have our sights set on, and that's the draft.
Oh, and the number one pick, Joe Garcia, right?
Congratulations, Joe. The number one pick is not Garcia. The number one pick is going to be Wembanyama.
All right. By the way, everybody, make sure to follow Joe on Twitter at 2 Shots Podcast. He's going to talk to you about his show and much later on the show. Well, Joe, let's go and dive into it here. Spurs-Bucks tonight. It's good. The Spurs debut their City Edition jerseys tonight. So, yay. We'll talk about that later. But that might be the only highlight tonight at the AT&T. Joe, your thoughts about tonight's game. What are you seeing?
I'm not expecting the Spurs to be world beaters. Let's be honest. I think they're going to remain competitive probably for the first quarter. Then after that, I really expect the Bucks to, basically just put down the hammer. And, I don't think the Spurs are going to have an answer for Giannis, and basically right now he's arguably the best player in the NBA and he is the front runner for MVP voting. If we had to vote today, he would probably win by a landslide. And the Bucks are 10-1, the Spurs, well, their record, goes and tells you where this team is at currently.
5-7. Yeah. 5-7. Yeah. 5-7, 5-game losing streak. And as you mentioned, Joe, coming off that heartbreaking overtime loss to the Grizzlies, 124-122. Yeah. You're right, though. The Bucks, they're the hottest team. I mean, they just barely lost their first game recently. 10-1, as you mentioned. This is going to be the first meeting between the two teams. And last season, Joe, they split the series 1-1. Yeah, that one Spurs beat them in their gym. And then obviously the Bucks beat San Antonio last year in the AT&T. But nevertheless, are you expecting this team to continue showing their fight, their spirit, to give it their all? Or do you really think the Bucks are going to just steamroll them from jump?
No, I mean, I expect the Spurs to fully be in the game and to be competitive. I'm sure that they'll find themselves in a hole, and they're going to wind up chipping away at that as the the game wanes on. Probably by the second quarter, they're probably going to find themselves at a deficit, but they're going to still remain competitive, continue to play hard. And I believe that, probably by the fourth quarter, they'll probably chip away at that deficit and make the game interesting. But I fully expect the Bucks to win because, let's face it, experience is going to go ahead and push them through. And unfortunately for the young Spurs, they're still an inexperienced team, and that's your difference.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing in this losing streak that the Spurs are on. They're getting out rebounded. I believe in their last 3-4 games, or no, actually 5 games straight. Yeah, it coincides with the losing streak. They're getting out rebounded. That's not a good sign. Something you got to watch for tonight.
Paint,
As far
paint
as the
them
Buck,
paint too, Jeff. They got
yeah.
hammered in the last game with Memphis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then out rebounded as well by Memphis too. I mean, just 53 rebounds for Memphis. I mean, my goodness, they were just getting all those opportunities. But as far as tonight is concerned, yeah, I really hope the Spurs keep that competitive edge that they've been showing. Sure, Joe, a moral victory. I get it. Yay, they lost, but look at their fight. Yay, they lost, but my God, they gave Memphis all they got. I get there's no such thing as a moral victory, but in this season, Joe, moral victories could go a long way. Your thoughts?
It can, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, winning makes your team camaraderie a lot better.
Mm.
Having those missed opportunities, and like Spurs fans were saying yesterday, if they had only made their free throws, they could have won this game. It was a little bit more than just free throws. There's a lot of missed assignments as far as the defense goes, transition defense. Not getting out there, in time. Making bad decisions, making bad plays, poor shot selection. I mean, you go down the line and it boils more to just young and inexperienced team. So they'll learn, Jeff. I have confidence that they'll learn and they'll get better and they'll play and execute a little bit better. But is it going to translate to more wins? Probably not. But any wins that they do get, I fully expect them to be very excited. And, you're going to see that energy be at an all-time high when they finally surprise a few of these really good teams and actually get a win, So that's
Yeah,
always good to help them as far as their growth moving forward for the future. But right now it is what it is, Jeff.
absolutely. And speaking of development tonight, Sohan will likely draw some defensive assignment on Giannis. Yeah, the Greek freak.
Ooh.
Good luck, Sohan. But he's been tasked to do that. He did that versus Morant. He's going to do that again tonight versus Giannis. Is it going to be a tough thing for him? But that's part of his development. And Joe,
Baptism by fire,
like
Jeff.
he's well. Here's the thing, Joe. Isn't part of the checklist this season development? Isn't
Yeah.
that leaning towards development, letting these kids get thrown to the fire?
Yep, you got to. And Coach Pop has no choice because they're dropping like
Yeah.
flies, So he's just going to get these young kids and just throw them out in the fire and say, there's a good learning experience, even if you, wind up getting owned. I mean, you got to hold your own somehow and learn. So good. It's a good teaching lesson, opportunity for Jeremy Sohan.
Yeah. And the Bucks, tough team. We're going to get into some of the numbers right now, but one thing, they're coming in hot. The Bucks are 9-1 in their last 10. And on the road, they haven't played that many, Joe, but they're 3-1. So whether they're at home or on the road, they are a beast to deal with. We're talking with Joe Garcia right here on Locked On Spurs. We're previewing tonight's Spurs-Bucks game. And then later on the show, we're going to get our reactions. And I know Joe's going to love it. the new City Edition jerseys. What do we think? What do we like? Are they a win? And much, much more on this episode of Locked On Spurs. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Bet Online. BetOnline is your number one source for your sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to soccer to esports. You get it all basically over at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well over at BetOnline. Look, they're the fastest. They're always going to be the easiest. It's the way you got to go if you want to get your betting fix. You want to go to BetOnline right now. Head to the website today. You got yourself a mobile device to learn more. Go to BetOnline right now. Why? Because it's where the game starts. We're back with Joe Garcia right here on Locked On Spurs. We're previewing tonight's Spurs-Bucks contest, and then we're going to give our take on the new Spurs City Edition jerseys. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen today. Go check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So, Joe, let's go and look at some numbers here. I think this is going to be very telling right away. And you brought up a good point in the first segment about the rebounding. And let's put it this nicely. The Spurs may have another game where they get out rebounded. Just Giannis alone, he's second as far as player stats in the NBA at rebounding at 12.2 per game. Why am I bringing that up? Because it's key, because the Spurs have been out rebounded in 5 straight games. Joe, your thoughts?
I mean, again, it just boils down to inexperience, knowing where to be on the court, and really starting to solidify your position when you're inside the paint, trying to fend off your your opponent from getting an easy rebound, and let's face it, right now the Spurs don't have a lot of length, but they're making the most of what they have. I mean basically you got a lot of little components here that are just trying to hold the fort down. So even though the team isn't at 100%, they're trying, man. They just don't have the same length that some of these other teams have, and the athleticism. Even though they are young and they have speed and they do have athleticism, the other talent for some of these other teams has just been a little bit better, and they're getting to the spots and really scrapping and getting the rebound. And this young Spurs team is just going to have to learn to, like Coach Pop said, you got to bring some of that nasty out. You got to bring some of that dog out, and you got to go up there and get it, and you got to fight, and I think that's what they're learning to do early on right now, and hopefully that will pay dividends for them as the season wanes on. But they just got to get after it, man. You got to get in there and put your elbows up and your hands up, and I mean, you got to be nasty,
I think it might be a contrast in styles tonight, because we mentioned Giannis alone, that defensive category, just rebounding 12.2, but just the Bucks as a whole, Joe, they're first in the NBA in defensive rating. They're only allowing 102.9 points per game. That is just insane, considering the league and the era that the NBA is in right now with high octane offenses. They're holding teams to just a little over 100. That could spell doom for the Spurs tonight. So I think one of the keys coming into tonight, Joe, the Spurs, Joe, they got to run. They got to run and try to get that score up high.
Yeah, they do. I mean, right now, when you're looking at one of their strengths, and that's going to be pace, right now, as far as, out of 30 teams in the NBA, Spurs rank right at 5th out of 30, as far as their pace goes. The Bucks, they're 15th out of 30 when it comes to pace. So that's one of the strengths that the Spurs have against the Bucks. They got to get out and run the open court, but the Bucks are one of the best defensive teams in the league right now. They're at the tops. They're first out of 30 teams. So, I mean, it's going to be a tall order for the young Spurs, but if they can get out and run when they get their opportunities, that's where you can capitalize.
Yeah, I believe the Spurs are probably going to need a heavy dose. Well, I take that back. They're going to need all hands on deck. There's no doubt about it. It's not a heavy dose of Keldon or Devin or even Trey, who I think is having a phenomenal season and is really showing what a steal he was in the second round. I think it's going to be all hands on deck. You're going to have to step up. All 3 of those guys, plus McDermott, plus Sohan, plus just throw a body out there. They're going to need to, Josh Richardson. He's going to need to step up, which he has been. So this is going to be an all hands on deck situation for the Spurs if they want to snap their losing streak. Another interesting thing you want to keep an eye out tonight in this game as we preview it is where the Spurs could actually pull out an upset. Now, this season, the Spurs, whenever they out assist their teams, they're 5-1. That goes back to the all hands on deck thing, Joe. They're going to have to share that ball. Everybody's going to have to contribute. Your thoughts?
No, they're going to have to share the ball, definitely, and they're also going to have to, try to get the most efficient shot that they can get. You don't want to necessarily rush the issue, and the Spurs have shown some issues when a team goes ahead and pressures them. Especially when they do the full court press, you get turnovers, you get trapped. And in the half court set, again, the Milwaukee Bucks being the best defensive team right now in the NBA. They're going to really pressure the young Spurs, and the Spurs aren't sharing the ball and they're kind of closing those passing lanes. It's going to make things hard for them because you're going to have a lot of ISO and one-on-one situations, and that's really not their strong point. Sharing that ball, moving it around the horn, moving it around, the court, and really looking for that, open shot. That's really going to be what they're going to have to do. But again, you got to do that for full 48 minutes, and I don't know if this young inexperienced team can do that, Jeff.
Joe, how to put you on the line? How do you see tonight's game going down?
Again, I think the Spurs might make things interesting down the stretch, but I got the Bucks by at least 13 points. Unfortunately, I think the Spurs are going to make a run, maybe in the fourth quarter, and maybe cut through that lead a little bit. But I still think the Bucks are going to come out victorious.
Brutal. So you're expecting a beatdown in the AT&T, huh?
Not necessarily a beatdown. I hope it's not a 30, 40-point blowout, but I think the Bucks might put it on the Spurs. Probably midway through the first or in the second, and they might go up by at least double digits, 17, 20 points. And then the Spurs might come back and make it interesting, especially in that fourth quarter, cut the lead, go on a little run. But unfortunately, I think the inexperience is going to rear its ugly head, and the Spurs are just not going to have enough of that firepower to overcome the Bucks onslaught. They're going to dig a hole, and it's hard to come out of that early, especially, having to expend all that energy trying to climb back in it,
Yeah, one thing the Spurs have shown this season is the ability to rise up to the occasion. We saw them go to Philadelphia and beat the Sixers. We saw them take Memphis to overtime and nearly pull out the win versus a Memphis team that is seen as one of the best teams in the league. So I expect a little of that as well. But again, I agree. I think the Spurs pick up their sixth loss in a row. That's painful to say, but yeah, Milwaukee is just too tough. Just Giannis alone is just too tough. And I think we're seeing that pattern already develop this season where they'll be competitive, but the talent on the opposite side, the opposition that is going to overwhelm them. We saw that in John Morant in the overtime. We might see that tonight versus Giannis and the Bucks. If the Bucks and Spurs are close, I can see them just dumping it to Giannis saying, all right, do your thing. And here we go. But yeah, Spurs-Bucks tonight at the AT&T, the debut of the new San Antonio Spurs City Edition jerseys. We're going to dive into that up next, give our reaction. What do we think? What do we like? What don't we like about the new throwback uniforms with Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast. We're back with Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast, and make sure to follow him on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. Do it right now. He's such a great follow, and he's going to tell you why you should be tuning into his show later on the show. So, Joe, the Spurs revealed the new City Edition jerseys. Not much of a surprise. Everybody knew this. It was leaked. The moment the 2021-22 season was over, then you had Blake Wesley inadvertently put it out there on social media. Hey, this is what they look like. Him sitting on the chair, posing with it. So no big surprise, but we got a clearer look at the photos of the jerseys. What did you like? What don't you like of the new throwback jerseys?
Well, I thought the jerseys were in good taste. I mean, compared to what we had last season, which was the white Fiesta colored jersey. I mean, it wasn't one of my favorites, but I do like this style of jersey. It harkens back to the only NBA All-Star game that was ever held here in the city of San Antonio. The only thing that I can gripe about, Jeff, is how come we don't have no jalapeno in here? We did back in the day. That's the only thing. But the font is okay. I like the logo that the Spurs came out with now. They just changed it to SA. I like that font, real clean look, and I'm sure the merch is going to look really nice, with these teal colors. I like this over just, the generic black and the white with the Fiesta colored theme on it. This looks a little bit more polished, put together. So I'm digging it, man. I might actually go out and buy me a jersey.
I'm glad you brought up the jalapeno because that was my biggest gripe, is that the jalapeno was missing. I think that was so iconic about the All-Star jerseys in 1996 in San Antonio. It was just that jalapeno. It's not exactly a duplicate of the 96 jerseys, I put on my timeline on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone comparison. And the teal is not as dark as the teal used in 1996. The biggest omission is the jalapeno. I agree with you, Joe. That should have been on there. The jalapeno also had a basketball, I think, on top of it, something like that. Like, wasn't it like resting on it?
Yeah, and
So,
because I have that
mhm,
logo, I use the logo for my two
mhm,
shots. So if you go on my profile pic at Two Shots Podcast on Twitter, you're going to see that, and yeah, there's none of that, the jalapeno with the basketball and the stars, even how they had the court, they had the Alamo with the jalapeno and all that kind of stuff, and
mhm.
you would have thought they might have used some of that in the jersey, but no, none of that, so. I mean,
Yeah.
they get a big A for effort. They really put some thought into this one.
No, no, they did. Look, I'm not, flushing them down the toilet. I think they're awesome. They're just not an exact duplicate of it. Like, for example, player numbers were offset on the upper chest. The new edition, City Edition jerseys are in the middle. So it's an homage. Let's put it that way. It's an homage to the old '96 All Star jerseys in San Antonio. Again, just paying tribute.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it's a hit. I think it's awesome. I think it knocked it out of the park. Now, did they stick to things that were in the '96 jersey? Of course, those geometric shapes on the rib cage and the shorts, they're still there. I liked how they added an SA on the waistline. That's awesome. And I think overall this is a good way to celebrate the 50th anniversary in San Antonio because, like you mentioned, Joe, there hasn't been another All Star game in San Antonio since 1996.
Yeah, you would hope that at some point that the NBA would rectify that. And the geometric shapes that you're talking about on the site, that's
Mhm.
the tribal.
Okay.
Spurs tribal design that they use a lot, and I liked it, I mean, I dig everything, it's not an exact duplicate, which is fine, you want to put your own spin on it. You just don't want to outright go and rip off, the NBA All-Star game from 96. You want to kind of put your own flavor to it. But I do agree, that the missing the jalapeno with the ball and the stars, kind of missed that. I mean, I wish they would have put it somewhere on the jersey. Didn't have to be in the same exact spot, but you would have liked to see it somewhere, you know?
Oh yeah, and the jerseys are not the only thing as that the Spurs released. There's caps, there's sweatshirts, the those extra merchandise, the extra gear. I think I might get myself that sweatshirt. It's awesome. I like that SA, the way the font is used on that SA. I think it's great. The jersey, I think I might get. I never really was a big jersey collector. I can appreciate them. I can enjoy them. I'll talk about them all the time. But as far as me just going out to get one, I've never been that way. The only reason why, Joe, is because the classic edition jerseys. Those I think still reign supreme this season as far as the best new jerseys, Joe.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely I like the classic jersey. I've been wanting the classic jersey that just has San Antonio on it, a la, the Iceman, George Gervin. I mean, that's the jersey that is synonymous with the San Antonio Spurs when you say retro jersey. That silver and black, that traditional is
Mhm.
really, really nice, clean. It's timeless, Jeff. And
No,
that's one that you should have on your list. That is a must buy. You want to put that in your arsenal of jerseys if you're a Spurs collector, so make sure you get that. And they do have some really nice hats, should I say, right now on the Spurs fan shop online. I'm looking at it, and they have one that has the outline of the city, and it's all silver and black. So that would go really nice with that George Gervin jersey.
all right, Joe. Let's go ahead and look at the city edition jerseys. By the way, before we do that, what's your grade for this one? What do you give
Oh,
it?
I
Thumbs
I'll
up?
I'll give it an
Down?
A, yeah, definite
Yeah.
A. I mean, I love it, dude. It looks really nice, but I am looking at that, sweatshirt, the hoodie that you were mentioning, and that looks really nice with the SA font on it.
Yeah, yeah. You saw it, right? It's pretty sweet, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I mean, it looks really nice, I saw somebody I actually post a jacket, it was like a fleece jacket that they put, I think it was on the official, San Antonio Spurs Facebook group, and that looked really nice too. I mean, it had a lot of cues from the harkening back from the old Spurs logos, and I want to see if I can get me something like that, Jeff. That looked really nice as well. But of course, it's not an official release. All the best merch is never official, Jeff. Why is that?
That's a good question. I mean, fans put out some great merchandise too. We got our Bear County social apparel. He puts out great merchandise. But yeah, fans definitely put that out there. And but time to ask you, Joe, how do you rank this year's new look jerseys? We'll take the three. There's the Classic Ed, the New City Editions, and the Statement. How do you rank them?
Okay, the new jersey they just released, the what is it called? What is this one? What is this version? The teal version that they released.
City
Is that
Edition.
the City Edition, right? Okay, the City Edition got an A from me. And the George Gervin one, that one got an A for me. The Statement jerseys that have the Serape design on them, no bueno, dude. I saw them, already, during the game situation and whatnot, and I thought I might like them better once you'll say the players are wearing them. They're out on the court. Still not a fan, man. I think the font they missed the mark. I mean, it was a good idea, but it was just poorly executed. So that one is just a miss for me. I give that one an F.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the right ranking for me. I go number one, it's Classic Edition. Number two, City Edition. And number three is the Statement Edition. The Statement Edition, it's a good effort. When I said, okay, well, let me wait to see them in play when the players are actually in it. Maybe took a little bit of the edge off for me. But if we're gonna rank them, yeah, it's definitely number three. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about tonight's Spurs-Bucks game? How do you see it going down? Are the Spurs going to get trounced, or do you think they're going to put up another valiant fight once again? And what do you think about the City Edition jerseys? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Joe, tell everybody how they can chat with you about all these topics and more.
Well, they can go ahead and check out twosshotspodcast.com. We have a website that has every bit of content that we're creating. You can go ahead and check that out. And you can also follow us across social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok now at twosshotspodcast.com. So make sure you go ahead and also check out our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate you subscribing and liking our videos. So any and all support is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Make sure to follow Joe on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. The list goes on and on, even on the Kens 5 Plus app as well. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. So for Joe Garcia, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.